Hello, hello. Good evening, everyone. Good evening. Welcome to another Destined to Be Free, Rising Victoriously podcast and radio show. My name is Stacy D. Shaw, President and co-founder of Destined to Be Free, and also one of the hosts of tonight's show. We have an amazing show for you tonight. But before we begin, let me introduce my wonderful co-host, or our other host, Miss Chayesda Washington, who is a great friend of mine, but she's also the Director of Finance and Fundraising. Let's Chai, welcome to the show.
Hi, Stacy. Can you hear me clearly?
Yes, I can hear you clearly. How are you?
Happy Cinco de Mayo. I'm happy to be here.
Oh, yes, happy single day. How are you? How are you?
I'm doing wonderfully. I'm doing wonderfully. I want you to see my health ambassador, so I had to, adjust my camera just a little bit.
Hey, awesome, awesome. I'm seeing it wonderful to let everybody know that she is a phenomenal health ambassador for everybody. But Chai, introduce yourself and let the viewers know who you are.
Well, thank you, of course, for having me on another edition of our podcast here at Destined to Be Free. My name is Chayesda Washington. You can call me Chai. Most of my friends do. I am a mother. I am a health ambassador. And as Stacey shared with you all, I'm also the Director of Finance and Fundraising here at Destined to Be Free, an organization that truly speaks to my heart. Having survived domestic violence. So I'm just honored to be here, Stacey, and I cannot wait to get into tonight's show.
Yes, yes, yes. As you said that, we have an amazing guest. So let me tell you about this phenomenal lady, LaQuisha Hall. LaQuisha is a force to be reckoned with, as she has dedicated her life to serving her community and has been recognized by great leaders, including President Barack Obama and others. She has won regional, state, and national pageant titles, including, most recently, Mrs. Maryland USA Ambassador 2020. LaQuisha founded the She Rose Awards to give a platform to abuse survivors to share their own stories of survival. Beginning her skills in mentoring at the age of 16, she also spends hours locally, abroad, mentoring via her nonprofit program, Queendom TEA, which means the Etiquette Academy. Committed to encouraging and teaching teen girls about personal safety, feminine etiquette, and positive self-esteem. She is the award-nominated and best-selling author of memoir on Holy Communion and a self-esteem journal for young girls, Positively Bodyful, and the co-author of more than 10 additional books. Wow. LaQuisha is the proud educator of Mrs. Hall Scholars, serving youth in Baltimore City Public Schools for 18 years and winning Teacher of the Year in 2018. Her walk and goal philosophy teaches communities to step off of familiar territory to do extraordinary things. LaQuisha has empowered others to empower others for 2 decades and has no plans of stopping. My gosh, my gosh, my gosh. Wow. Welcome, LaQuisha, to the show. Welcome, welcome, welcome.
Hi.
Welcome.
Praise the Lord. Look, girl, you brought me in real good.
Welcome to the show. It is so, we are so honored to have you to the show. We are so honored to have you here with us tonight. You taking the time out to be with us.
Thank you. I appreciate you having me, especially right after Sexual Assault Awareness Month, which just passed in April. And then now it is Mental Health Awareness Month nationally, and that's why I'm wearing green. I just wanted you to know, Stacey, because I had a lot of teal on last time.
I know. I know. And you know what? I should have wore teal. Oh, that's my bad, but it's okay. So, LaQuisha, let's get into the show. So normally, I just read your bio. I just read the beauty part of it, the pretty lipstick part of the bio. But in your own words, tell our viewers, who you are, and you can go straight into your experience with assault, and just let the viewers know about it. Take it away.
Okay, well, first of all, thank you again, Stacey and Chai. I love y'all. And essentially, in a nutshell, who I am is I am silly. I love God, and I am very, very gregarious. And so I don't have a problem going into a space and talking to anyone. I love helping people. I'm also an artist, which wasn't mentioned in the bio, but I spend a lot of time creating things, very pretty things, just like that bio you just read. And I love my life. Regardless of what you're going to hear tonight, I have no regrets in the path that I've had to take, that God has put me on. I trust him 100% with everything he has commissioned me to do and still have to do. And I just want the people listening to know that while you might hear some what could sound heartbreaking things, I'm in a great space. I know that God is using me for his glory and for his good, and that everything you're going to hear tonight, I want you to know, contributed to my success. So I am a survivor of multiple things. So first, I'm a survivor of domestic violence by way of my parents. Watched it growing up. It impacted us a lot in feeling safe, being safe, moving from place to place. You know, parents splitting up, getting back together, splitting up, getting back together. Just a lot of confusion. And so when I turned 12 years old, my parents finally finitely divorced. And so as a result, there was a man that came into my mother's life at her most vulnerable time, which was when her and my father had officially separated. And unfortunately, he preyed on her vulnerability, which led him to also preying on me. So at the time, I was 14 years old when he came into our household, and he's a pastor, and so he came in like with the language, the words, the wisdom that you would expect someone who's safe to have. And I'm mentioning that not to throw clergy under the bus, but to make people aware that what they think is a sexual predator is not always what they look like. So we are accustomed to hearing about the boogeyman in the alley. So we tell the people that we love to not go out at night by themselves, or to make sure you got an escort to your car and things like that, because we're trying to prevent these kind of situations from happening. But there are people who we trust and believe in that are right under our noses, who could potentially prey on our young people as well and ourselves, right? And so it's important for us to always keep our eyes open, not to be suspicious of everyone that we see, but to look for the signs. And when you feel anything or sense anything, to take heed and not to turn your head and sweep another situation under the rug. I am a cycle breaker, and so I don't allow a continuation of abuse and violence to occur in my family. And so it ended with me in my household. But back to my story, it continued for 2 years from age 14 to 16 years old. And I left home at 16. I became a ward of the state, and I had a Medicaid card. You couldn't tell me nothing, Stacey and Chai. Listen, y'all, I could go to the doctor when I wanted to, only pay $5. Listen, I thought I was doing something at 16. You couldn't tell me I wasn't grown, okay? But I'm saying all that to say that there was so much I still needed to learn, so much healing that had to take place while I left a space. The truth is, what ended up happening was I carried the mental baggage with me away from the home. And so everything that I experienced for like the next 2 or 3 years was tumultuous and very difficult for me, because I had not yet packed that part up and also made that depart, right? And so when I went off to college, which everybody told me was going to be my saving grace, because, you know, when you go to college, you're supposed to be like amazing after that, right? And so I get to college with all them student loans, pray the Lord, Biden do something. I had to put that plug in. But I get to college and I'm struggling because I'm in an environment now where there's a lot of young people who have their parents supporting them 100% in this transition. I'm in a dorm with a whole lot of other young ladies who have their parents helping them move in and put their rooms together, and calling them all the time to see if they got money, food, how's school going. I didn't have that same relationship at the time with my family. And so I found myself extremely depressed all the time because I just would witness this and be envious of the fact that I didn't also have people checking on me in that same capacity. And so the depression got so bad that it got to the point where I attempted suicide in my dorm room. I put on my favorite dress and shoes. I went to my morning class and I went back to my dorm room with the intentions of not leaving it again. And I swallowed over 100 Motrins and closed and locked the door, and I laid across the bed. And that was the last that I remembered vividly. But what I was told was my roommate tried to get into the room and couldn't because I had put the chain lock on the door as well. And so they broke into the room and found me laying across my bed, foaming at the mouth, I was told. And so I can't even begin to tell you all how embarrassing it was to have an ambulance called, people panicking, all the young ladies coming to their doors in the dormitory, trying to figure out what's going on in my room. And I do remember vaguely, being put on a stretcher and rolled down this long hallway. Like I was all the way at the end of this hall, and they took me all the way to the front door to get me to the ambulance. I remember as I was going down the hall, how many girls were standing in their doorway to see what was happening and transpiring. And I just, to this day, wonder if we as a community didn't wait until a catastrophe happened and came to the door sooner. How could some of the tragedies that we experience and see happening be prevented, right? We come to the door to witness or observe something terrible that has happened, but do we just come to the door to say, hey, LaQuisha, I'm checking on you. Are you okay? I noticed that you didn't have this. Would you like that? I just think it's important for us to keep in mind that we need to stop being reactive and be proactive as a community. And so I do recognize that the young ladies in the dorm were young and probably didn't know what to do and probably didn't know what signs to look for in me. But just as a community, I just wanted to put that out there because we are quick to hold the cell phone up and record something that went wrong. Are we just as quick to prevent these things from happening? That's something that I really want people to think about. Are we looking for the signs in our young people that they could be traumatized, abused, depressed, hurt? Or are we brushing that off as that's just a teenager? And a lot of that happens. And so it's unfortunate because our young people are suffering as a result. We're not taking heed in the way that we should. And so I am a product of not engaging or having an engaging community around me. But I will say that the start of my journey towards healing was finding a church in my hometown that took me in and embraced me as their own. And that was the start of my journey of healing. And so I just shared with you a whole lot, I know, but essentially I've overcome, again, the domestic violence, sexual abuse, technically incest, mental health issues, as well as suicide attempts. Like, it's a lot that goes into what we think is just, let's get them out the home. There's so many side effects that need to be addressed. And so I experienced all of that.
Wow. That was not only more than a mouthful, but I'm literally over here trying to take notes and keep up with you at the same time, LaQuisha. Thank you for sharing your story with such passion. And you actually touched on what we're getting ready to talk about, which is how did you begin your healing process? And I know you said you found a church community. So if you could just expound on that a little bit to share with our viewers tonight, as well as those who will watch the replay, as we hope they'll share also this video for Mental Health Awareness Month, and how critical it was for you to find that community and what they help you to accomplish.
Absolutely. Thank you for asking that. I'm going to start by saying that a lot of people have asked me in the past when I've shared with them that I was molested by a pastor, how did I have the wherewithal to continue in my faith with God? And so one of the things, if someone's listening and they're like, oh, that's why I don't like churches, I don't like, preachers, whatever your thought process may be, I want people to know that what men do is not what God would do. And so I was completely able, and I'm not 100% sure how, I just knew that what was happening to me was not because God was doing it. It was because a human had a mindset to do wrong. And so when you can separate God from what people do, that's when you can really form a relationship. And I honestly believe that once we get to a place where we can do that, even as adults, that will strengthen our faith, honestly. But I had to, well, first I'll say, I can't tell y'all how many Gideon Bibles I signed. Y'all know you get them Gideon Bibles on the campus. They got in the back, if you sign this line, you get saved. I got saved like over 20 times. And so I was just like, look, by the time I got to this church, you couldn't tell me I wasn't going to heaven because I had already signed all these Bibles. But I knew that there was something missing from my life. I definitely knew that there was a part of me that while I believed in God, that where I wasn't whole and where maybe I wasn't fully depending on God. I was kind of like depending on myself, and then I was letting myself down because I would give up on me. And so when I got to that church, first of all, y'all, I'm just being honest, this was a very apostolic church. Okay, so I walk in looking like a college girl, all right, and they didn't look like college girls. Okay, they looked very holy. And so when I got into the space, I was like, Lord have mercy, this probably ain't church for me. But when I tell y'all, the man of God, his name is Daniel Spellman, he preached, and I felt like the message was directed at me. I felt like he knew what happened in my life. And then I almost felt like he was looking at me too, and he might have, because y'all know how they do when new people come into church. But the message was so accurate in how I felt about myself, how I felt about my spiritual life, how I just maneuvered in the world. And he did an altar call. I didn't even have the strength to get up to go to this altar call because I was overcome with an overwhelming sob. I mean, it was like a cry from the depth of my soul to God to please come in to my heart and my life and change these things around and help me feel what it is that I felt like the world around me was feeling. And so I got to the altar and I, gave my life to Christ. Eventually I got baptized in the church. Now I will say everybody's path to healing is different. Okay. So some people need to go to a counselor first or a psychologist or something like that. Some people need to get therapy, or maybe even tell their story to their friends. Talking to other people about what happened to you, and if they believe you and support you, is a way to start your healing process as well. Journaling, like a lot of people that I've talked to have started their healing process in different ways. I'm emphasizing that because I don't want people to think if I go to church this Sunday, I should start healing. That might not necessarily be the path of the start of your healing. But I will say that having a strong spiritual life, whatever your spirituality is, I think is an essential part of your healing process because it centers you in a way that you can't do on your own, right? And so it was after that I began to understand my relationship with God more, but I still didn't understand why my family was so jacked up. And so as time went on, what transpired was I moved to Baltimore to become a teacher, and I'm from North Carolina, and so the culture was very different here. And so I arrived in Baltimore. I meet my husband here, and I don't remember how I was convinced, but I remember meeting a friend who was in pageantry, and I at the time was volunteering for organizations that advocated against sexual abuse. And one of the things that frustrated me that I was sharing with her and I was venting about was I literally watched people, if I was sitting behind a table where I was disseminating information, they would walk by really, really fast when they read the title on the tablecloth, right? So the tablecloth, real big, would say something like "Stop Child Sexual Abuse." And so they would see that and act like they didn't see me. Some people physically put their hands up over their face. I'll never forget this one time, a lady and her child, a young child, were walking by. She saw the table and she turned her child's head as if what we had to offer was something that people shouldn't see. And that frustrated me so much because all I could think about was how much I needed my parent to see the information that we were giving out. And I needed them to at least take it even if they couldn't engage with us. And so in sharing that with a friend, she shared with me, I use pageantry to amplify my message. And so I told y'all I came from an apostolic church. I wasn't in a place to be in a pageant, right? So I found the first pageant that I found to participate in was the Mrs. Christian International pageant. Y'all, it had to be a Christian pageant, or I wasn't doing it, all right? Because me and Jesus, that was it. And so I'm in this pageant with all these other women who look like they've been doing pageants for years. And I was like, ooh, I look like I'm out of my league. What happened was the moderator asked me on stage what was the hardest thing I had to overcome. And I ended up telling my story on that stage publicly for the first time in my life. And it was very transformative because so many people were inspired by it. Ended up winning the pageant. But what was even more inspiring were the people who came up to me afterwards to congratulate me and then ask, how did I have the courage to say that? And the truth was, I just answered the question honestly. I actually was very scared about it afterwards because the room got real quiet when I answered the question. And I was like, oh my goodness, I just talked about a man of God in front of all these Christians and they probably think the worst of me right now. And I remember this 81-year-old woman, and I only know her age because she eventually shared it with me, but she was in a wheelchair. She came up to me, congratulated me, and then she took my hand and she said, baby, I want to tell you this one thing and I don't want you to forget it. And then she latched on or grabbed her locket necklace and she opened it. And she started to get like emotional. And she said, don't you ever stop telling your story. And so I'm looking at her. I'm like, okay, man, I'm trying to be respectful and all that. But then she starts crying. And she shows me the photo in the locket. It looked like an older woman and a younger woman. She said that was her and her mother. And her mother had passed before she had the opportunity to tell her what happened to her by her father. And she was at 81 years old, still living with those regrets. And so I told myself, I don't want to have those regrets in my future. I want to make sure that I share my story.
Awesome. Thank you so much for that, LaQuisha. We're going to run a short video at this time, and then we'll come back for more discussion.
Okay.
It's the facts. But there are just a few other things you should know. Sexual violence includes rape and any other unwanted sexual contact or experience. About 1 in 3 women and 1 in 6 men have experienced sexual violence in the form of physical contact at some point in their lives. Violence starts early. Before the age of 18, 8.5 million women first experienced rape. Victims of sexual violence can experience depression, anxiety, and suicidal thoughts. Sexual violence impacts everyone. Its effects ripple through families, neighborhoods, and workplaces. But we all play a role in its prevention. Public health, businesses, schools, communities, and you can work together to stop sexual violence from happening in the first place. It's about addressing and understanding the root cause of why people single others out for cruel or unjust treatment. It's about promoting attitudes and behaviors for equality and respect. It's about implementing bystander intervention training, meaning teaching people when to stand up and speak out, creating safe spaces.
So, LaQuisha, that video actually just shared a little bit about sexual violence and shared some of the statistics. And I'm sure that because of people not actually coming forward, those numbers more than likely will be wrong, because there are so many people that are still so afraid to come and actually say that they experience this. So tell me, what do you think we as a community or a country or can do to assist people in coming forward?
That's a great question, Stacey. The fact that you asked that question says a lot about you and your community already. The fact that we're having this conversation, this is a great starting point. I think a lot of people are just not well educated in what the signs are. And so just like I was volunteering for that organization, it's important to take that information and learn it. And even if you feel uncomfortable physically taking it from the hands of an advocate, maybe just paying attention to forums like this, looking at websites like RAINN.org or the National Sexual Violence Resource Center, looking up what the signs look like in young people and adults. So in that video, they just described all the signs that I had. And if somebody would have picked up on how depressed I was, or how alone I might, or withdrawn I was, or how anxious I might have been sometimes, that could have been a lead in to a conversation with me that could have offered me the opportunity to share. Outside of education, I think it's important for us to know how to engage people when they come to us with their stories. So because we are angry about what we're hearing, sometimes we react with anger, right? And so we'll say, I'm going to kill him or her. And we go off because we're mad about what has happened to somebody that we care about. The feelings are justified, but that isn't the appropriate response, because you have to recognize that the person who finally came forward has been probably silenced for a long time. They need that space where you're not in a space to continue sharing if they need to. And sometimes they'll clam back up if they see that they've upset you. And sometimes some survivors, that's exactly why they won't share, because they don't want to upset the people that they care about, right? So making statements like, I believe you, I'm here for you, how can I support you? You're not alone. Do you want to talk further? Are you comfortable continuing? Just making statements to let them know, I'm listening to you right now. Nothing else matters. I'm giving you the stage, and allowing them to take that stage and do what they need to with it until the whole conversation is completed, and then go through the official process of supporting them, either through a local organization or filing a police report and getting a rape kit done.
Great tips. Thank you so much, LaQuisha. I'm taking this all in. One of the things about also being a co-host is that you're taking in new information. I want to take notes so bad, but I have to stay present, because you're saying things that I'm a mother of a 25 and a 23-year-old, and they're both young women. And one of my greatest concerns as a parent is seeing them out in the world and kind of moving on their own, and not being able to protect them and hold their hands, because I know what's out there. And I just, again, like you said, you want to be able to protect, your family. May is Mental Health Awareness Month. And a lot of people are acknowledging that we really need to take the stigma off of mental health awareness. Yeah. And so that people feel comfortable coming out and sharing their stories. Can you share what are some of the ways sexual assault can affect someone's mental health?
Oh my goodness, child, that's such a good question, because listen, first of all people who have been victimized by any trauma start to doubt themselves. Like if you saw a shooting, if your parents divorced, if your pet died, you start to question yourself and how you contributed to that, right? So just think about how much more heightened that is in a society and a culture where literally the victim is blamed for sexual assault based on what they're wearing. What did you say? What were you drinking? So you're in your head already saying, oh, it must have been my fault. I must have done this, which lowers your self-esteem because you're feeling like you put yourself in a precarious situation. And so definitely low self-esteem is one of the biggest things that can come from sexual trauma, as well as just the lack of energy and motivation, right? So that's what leads to the depression. Sometimes it's just hard to even get out of the bed because you're questioning, like, what am I here for? You feel like because you were violated, something was taken from you. You might even question whether or not you still have a purpose here on the earth. And so that's what leads to the suicidal thoughts. And so I just think when you encounter people who are often negative about themselves, putting themselves down, can't take a compliment well. I know a lot of us don't do that well and have to learn that, but there are some people where it's like a consistent, they can't do it. Or if you notice that in a social situation, they're always isolated. Some people will just sum that up to, oh, she's not very social. But sometimes when you dig a little deeper, she's not social because she doesn't feel comfortable, or he doesn't feel comfortable engaging because they don't want to put themselves in that position again, right? And so taking the time out to look at what anxiety looks like, what depression looks like, what low self-esteem looks like, what hopelessness looks like, educating yourself on those kind of signs, what it sounds like, what the person who has it might say to you is extremely important. I definitely, like, that emanated from me in a very heavy way, but no one, I believe because of the lack of education of where that could have come from, no one ever asked me.
Wow, it's that unmute button. I'm over here just, I'm wowing and feeling all that you're sharing because, and I hope someone who is joining us tonight or even watching the replay, that they understand that no matter how bad you think it is, you're not alone. Like someone somewhere in the world has been through exactly what you're going through and can connect with you and help you out of that place, right? And so it's the vulnerability. You have to be vulnerable in order to share your story. And we tend not to be vulnerable because we want to look and appear strong, but the strongest act of courage is asking for help. So I will say that much. And Stacey knows me. And of course, I'm the woman who's behind the money, right? So I always have to tell people we got bills to pay. Okay. And so with that being said, we're going to take a brief commercial break. Our board members have some special messages that they want to share with our viewers, with our audience. And then we're going to come back to what I like to call my favorite part of the show. And that is life after abuse. So stay tuned, guys.
Hello, I'm Marianne, the Fearless Living Coach and Career Reset Strategist. As your guest, I'm available for your virtual or live events, as your keynote speaker, workshops, or retreats. My mission is to equip women with strategies to silence their insecurities, build healthy boundaries, and fearlessly pursue the life and career of their dreams. After you visit my website at marianneriveradanert.com, feel free to send me an email to marianne@marianneriveradanert.com, or you can give me a call at 585-857-9597.
Okay, we're back. Now, Stacy will tell you this is my absolute favorite part of the show. Not that getting to know the guest isn't a really good part as well, but then we have a what I consider to be a more relaxed conversation. So it's kind of just we're all just diving in. Life After Abuse, and the acronym stands for love, inner healing, finances, and entrepreneurship. Now, while I know not everyone is going to use every one of those acronyms to, add to their lives, it's very important because I'm a hopeless romantic. And even after domestic violence in my relationship with the father of my children, I still believe that there was love somewhere for me down the road. And oftentimes, as women, and I can only speak for a woman because that's what I am, right? We tend to not want to get back out there. We're afraid, we've just been hurt too many times. And we sort of lock ourselves into this place where we're loveless and we desire love, but we don't know how to get there. So what does life after abuse mean to you, LaQuisha?
First of all, I love that acronym. Oh my goodness. I think I have employed all parts of your acronym. So for me personally, it has looked like being an advocate for the little LaQuishas out there, as well as the. So when I say the little LaQuishas, I'm not just talking about young people. Sometimes there's a little. You fill in the blank with your name within you as an adult, right? Because that little girl who's still hurting from your childhood still lives within you and needs to be spoken to. And so I have spent my adult life, the past 2 decades, advocating. I did a lot of it in person initially, and then I transitioned into creating my own programs to support people. And then, of course, during the pandemic, I had to shift what that looked like. So I created an online campaign called Reveal Your Teal for sexual abuse prevention and Restore Your Royalty for domestic violence prevention. And essentially, because I'm an artist, I use the creative community to help me promote awareness publicly on social media using the colors in their art. And writing in the caption positive things, statistics, educating other people on what the signs are, what this looks like, and how to get help. And so I have turned my past into like my whole life. That's all that I do now. And I've even integrated as much as I can as a teacher as well. So.
Wow. LaQuisha, I mean, this show has been phenomenal. And as Chai said, this is our laid back session where we chit chat. It's questions, but we chit chat. And from my experience, I know one of the factors for me when I was trying to survive was I made finances go by the wayside. It was like, okay, I know I need the money to pay for this, but my credit got shot. I didn't know what a budget was. I didn't do anything. It wasn't a priority for me. It was keeping a roof over my head, making sure I was safe, keeping a roof over my children's head. That was it. That's all that I could focus on. So, with life after abuse, one of the acronyms is finance. How important do you think it is in moving forward to rebuild your life, to make sure that your finances is in order, or you're taking the steps to make sure that they are better than what it was before?
It's super important, Stacey. Oh my goodness. Well, first of all, I believe that when someone is traumatized and they are, reacting in the way that you described that you did, I feel that that's because of the lack of value that you have of yourself, right? So when you don't see value in yourself and you kind of just feel like I'm expendable or maybe self-esteem is low, you won't put to the side or invest in yourself because you don't see yourself as an investment at that time, unfortunately. And it's important to rebuild yourself as a person, rebuild your mental capacity, rebuild your heart so that you can rebuild your finances, or else they'll continue to, as you say, go out the window because you still don't see yourself as worthy of even owning anything or having anything. And so, I personally, I struggled in the same way that you just described. However, one of the things that helped me was I had to remember, one, I was on my own. So you can't just be throwing money out the window when you're responsible for everything, right? And then number two, also, I wanted to be in a position where I could financially support people who were like me. And I couldn't do that in the way that I was living my life, similar to what you just described. So I wanted to give to the nonprofits that I was volunteering for. I wanted to help a woman who needed to escape domestic violence and live in a shelter for a while, but I couldn't do that if I didn't have it myself, right? And I couldn't even teach someone else how to do that if I wasn't an example of it. So I think it's important for you to, not you personally, but for us to be what we want to become, right?
Wow.
I want to become someone who supports people to not be in the position that I was in, that I have to set myself up for that, even if I'm not there yet.
I love that. I love the Chai. I know you know, you're the finance person, so you chimed in. Yeah, you're the finance person, so you chimed in now with that.
Baby, first of all, I had to write that down. Be what you want to become. Listen,
Yes.
this pen right here, I'm taking notes. I have to go back and I have to, I have to study this because that is critical. And I was a single parent, right?
Yes.
With 2 kids. I didn't ask to be a single parent. I don't know many people who just show up and say, hey, I want to do this on my own. Some people do, but that wasn't my story, right? I was forced into this, this I was drafted. I was drafted, right? And so financially, I literally, I was like Stacy, I wasn't married, so I didn't have to divorce, but I was solely responsible for the care of myself and 2 young children. And I was at the tender age of 23.
Wow,
yeah, go figure. All right. So here I am, 23 with 2 little babies in tow, and they are my sole responsibility. All I knew to do was to work. That's it. I had to pay bills. I was in complete survival mode. You could not stop me from working. I didn't have time to do anything else because that's all that mattered to me. Relationships, I didn't really have time for any of that because there was rent to be paid, right? And when people see you externally, I might have looked put together, but everything on the inside of me was a mosaic. I had been shattered trying to figure out how to put pieces back together, and you just keep putting one foot in front of the other. So, Stacy, you know me about that money. Okay?
Yes, I do.
I had to work 2 jobs at one time, and it wasn't nice because as a single parent, I was concerned about losing that time with my kids. But I'm not the only one that's experienced that, right? There are women out here working 2 and 3 jobs. And let me interject and also say there are also men out there. This isn't one of those platforms where we're like, oh, it's just women. Men aren't verbally, physically, psychologically, emotionally, spiritually, sexually abused. They are indeed. But we're only sharing a woman's perspective because that's all we have. And I'm going to challenge Stacy that we find us a male guest because we need to get a male's perspective. I'm just going to put that plug out there. But God, I could talk to you all night, LaQuisha, but we can't keep you all night, right? So you have started more than one organization, right? You have this pageant thing going on. You're very well spoken. You're a survivor. You've written several books. You have a business, and you're a public school teacher. So let me just clap my hands to you.
Look, clap too.
Right? Share with the viewers what led you on this path and what you do regarding survivors. Like, give them some, a short version of why LaQuisha is the bomb.com and you need to know me. Okay.
Thank you. You are so kind. Well, one of the things I want to say is none of what you just shared very briefly and quickly happened quickly, right? It was all the process. It happened over the span again of 2 decades, and it all started with a vision. And so I want to emphasize that because I feel like people give up on visions because they don't think they're possible. And sometimes we have to start in ways that are not ideal, right? So when I started my mentoring program for girls, my whole intention was I want to stop sexual abuse from happening to other young ladies. Now, I didn't have the money to get nonprofit status and all that kind of stuff. You know what I did? I just went to school, and the girls who wanted to talk after school stayed. And then it grew. It went from 10 girls to 40 girls. Then I was able to, through taking pictures and sharing on social media what I was doing, share with people, look how important this work is. And then I was able to get people to buy into what it was that I was doing. So one, believe in your vision. God gave it to you for a reason. And it's not supposed to be done through your own energy, right? It's supposed to be done through God. So if you got the resource to make it happen and all that, then that's not led by God. It's led by you. So it's important to know that you have to rely on Him to make their vision come to pass. And so everything I've ever created or started with a thought that God gave me. And then He had to give me the resources too, and the energy, honey, because listen, child, I understand. I didn't work 3 jobs at one time, but I felt like I was. You know what I'm saying? Because I was just like, I done worked all day in school. Now I got to stay after school for an extra hour to work with 40 girls. And then when I get home, there's people relying on me to teach a virtual art class. OMG, that's 3 jobs.
Where was the sleep in all of this? Okay.
It's that divine vision that came to pass. The only reason that I was able to do all that I had done and continue to do is because God gave it to me. When God gives it to you, He will also give you the strength to make it happen. So,
come on now. Come on now. Don't get me started with that one.
Oh yeah, you right in the chat, Stacey. Let's
go. Don't get me started with that one because okay, you know, the show. Let me just go to the next question because you just hit it right there, LaQuisha. You just hit it right there. And to continue on all the phenomenal things that you are doing, you actually went ahead as well and had an award gala for survivors. Mm-hmm. Viewers, to everybody that is listening and watching, even the replay, this lady is phenomenal. I'm just telling you, she is phenomenal. LaQuisha actually started, or she did, an award gala for survivors. Tell us about that. How did it get started? Just share with the viewers how you went into that opportunity.
Well, I'll be honest with you. It started with that vision again, right? So the vision came to me based on what I shared with you earlier about me sharing my story on a pageant stage. I had the opportunity to express myself and feel that love coming back to me from people who were inspired by it. I recognize that sometimes people just need to tell their story, and that could be the start of their journey, right? Mm-hmm. But people didn't have safe spaces to tell their story then. You know, you can't tell it at the family dinner because they'll shun you or put you out. You ain't even a turkey leg yet, and they already cussing you out. So, Heroes Awards, which is what I called it that because I didn't have any men the first time. I did get one man in the span of about 5 years that was willing to speak out, and we had a custom award made for him called Heroes Award. But Heroes was an opportunity for unsung survivors, meaning people who had never told their story before, to have this forum with people in the audience that cared about them, where they could tell their story and start their journey. And so the very first year that I hosted this gala, they arrived in gowns. It was like very formal. So it was almost like one of the survivors told me that I glamorized being a survivor, and she appreciated that because it's always looked very different. Mm-hmm. And so what would happen is they would tell their story. I would prep them, of course, in advance to support them through that. They would type it out, send it to me. I would tell them what to take out, what to leave in, because sometimes in telling your story, you got to know how as well. Mm-hmm. And so had the opportunity to do it, I presented them with the award, and then we had dinner and celebrated the start of a new part of their lives, right? So that was essentially the goal. Was She Rose means you're rising now. You're going to a new place in your life because you no longer carrying that heavy bag that you walked in here with. And so in my very first gala, there were 6 honorees, and 2 of them were my former students.
Wow.
I'm speechless because I already, and of course you get these downloads, and downloads are starting to happen even while I'm on this call. So I just, and I don't usually do this. And, this platform, of course, is Stacy's brainchild and her baby. But I wouldn't be here if she hadn't invited me to participate in Surviving Her, which is where I share my story for the very first time. And I'm not gonna let my eyes sweat. I'm sorry. Okay. They get to sweating behind these glasses. Okay, so
you got this. You got this. Come on.
Don't worry about it. It's
exactly. You got this.
But it has freed me in so many ways. And when you said that these unsung survivors were telling their stories for the first time, I had only told mine when I started writing it down on paper. I hadn't shared it with any of my family. I hadn't shared it with any of my friends. Many of my friends who knew me just knew, oh, she's a real rugged kind of strong girl, single mom, raised kids, high energy, run a couple businesses, she's a motivational speaker, loves health. She's all these things, right? But they had no idea what I'd come from. They just knew that no matter how many times I got knocked down, I kept getting back up, right? And had no idea, how Humpty put herself back together again. But I have to say, please share with the viewers, because not only am I going to start following you and connect with you, but please share with the viewers how they may connect with you. And do you have any final words before, of course, we close out tonight's show?
Yes. So you can connect with me on all social media at LaQuisha Hall, my name on the screen. If you're interested in doing some creative things artistically to help yourself through your healing process, you can find me at Confident Canvas, because I'm a canvas for God and very confident in what He has created me to be. And then also, if you're an educator and you're interested in what I do in education, you can find me at Mrs. Hall Scholars. And that's on all social media as well. My final thought that I do want to share tonight is to not compare your story to other people's.
Mm-hmm.
So one of the reasons why I think some people are afraid to come out is because when they hear that someone was raped multiple times or they were held at gunpoint, and they're thinking to themselves, oh, I was just molested by my uncle, so that's not as serious as what this person went through, then they'll retreat and think that their story isn't worth sharing because it's not as traumatic as what they think it is. Mm-hmm. Your trauma is your trauma. If a bird died and you cried about it, that's important. And so tell your story. Tell your story, because your voice matters. And you have to remember that you're adding your voice to other voices, which makes the message louder. Across our society. We need a loud voice in this mission, because right now it's kind of like a whisper, and that's not okay when we know how many people it affects.
Ooh, Stacy, I know you're going to close us out, but I just want to thank, we did our inaugural fundraiser here at Destined to Be Free, and we launched it on April 26th, Stacy's brainchild. She partnered with House of Ruth for us to do a laundry campaign to help some of the women in that transitional housing environment. And, we take for granted, and homelessness is something that's very near and dear to me because I experienced it personally as a child, right? And so knowing that some of the basic essentials that women might need, something as simple as a sanitary napkin, laundry detergent, cleaning facilities to bathe and to, cleanse themselves, and just not even add the fact that they may have children involved, right? And so we, again, launched our very first fundraiser. It does not close until just under midnight tonight. So we're still asking for donations because we're still going to make purchases, and we're delivering those items on this Friday, May 7th, to the House of Ruth. So if you're willing to contribute, if you're willing to share this information with your organizations, we would greatly appreciate your donations. And no donation is too small. It doesn't matter if it's $1. We'll take it, because that is going to go to help someone who could absolutely use that monetary donation. Advertising. We have commercial breaks within our show, and we would love to have you share your business, whether it's geared toward domestic violence or not. We definitely would love for you to send your email to sponsorship@destinedtobefree.org. For donations, of course, you can do the paypal.me /destined to be free. Our Venmo is also destined to be free. And to be a guest on the show, you can email befree@destinedtobefree.org. It has been a pleasure getting to know you, LaQuisha. I'm going to turn it back over to my co-host, Miss Stacy, and she's going to close us out for this evening.
Whew. Wow. What can I say? What can I say? What can I say? Your story is your story. LaQuisha came on tonight and she dropped so much nuggets, information. I'm trying not to get teary-eyed as well because of the things that she said. But LaQuisha, thank you so much for coming onto the show to speak with us, to share your story, to tell us about what you're doing, advocating for the cause, and just letting our viewers know different things, bringing them, educating them on the awareness of abuse. So thank you again. It is greatly appreciated. And I definitely, we definitely, both Chai and myself definitely will have you back again on the show. But to our viewers, thank you so much again for joining us. Please remember to follow us on our Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter, #DestinedToBeFree, or you may visit our website at destinedtobefree.org. You may also subscribe to our newsletter as well. The sign up is on our Facebook page as well as on our website. I just want to thank everyone again for joining us tonight. Thank you to our amazing guest, LaQuisha Hall. I'm your host, Stacy D. Shaw, saying good night, as well as to our other host, Chayesda Washington. Please remember to join us on May 19th, same time, same place, for another show. You're victorious. Keep on rising. Good night and be blessed.